Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's nauseating to listen to some of this. It's really stunning. I don't know where they find these people that don't get it. They like breed these people in laboratory experiments or something. You're disconnected from reality. It was just a couple of years ago we had the border under control. You whine on about broken immigration systems. What Western nation? Who? Canada? France? Germany? Great Britain? Mexico? All of them have much more restrictive immigration programs and laws than the United States of America. We're the most generous, compassionate, wealthy Western nation in the world for immigration. We want citizens of every land to come to this country legally. Our border is wide open and out of control, and Americans are dying because of it. And I know Secretary Mayorkas is watching this, or having his team of attorneys watch this. Good. Because over the course of the next year, this committee is going to lay out the case against you, sir. If I could arrest you for violations of Louisiana revised statutes, I would. Louisiana revised statute 1432, negligent homicide. Louisiana revised statute 1424, principal to any criminal action. I charge you with thousands of murders as principal too. 18 U.S. Code 1001, you certainly knowingly and willfully lied to this body again and again and again about our border. Section 242, Title 18, under color of law, you've deprived Americans of their very life, including this young lady. The picture behind me, that's Sammy. She's just a little girl, dead from fentanyl. It came under your watch. Secretary Mayorkas, remember her name. I'm going to see to it that you have plenty of time in the course of your remaining life to remember the names of the 200,000 Americans who are dead because of fentanyl coming across a border that you have blown wide open. Sheriff Lamb, thank you for being here, sir. I'm sure you understand my passion, having to listen to this nonsense. We could fix our border in 1 week. Am I right, Sheriff? If we had policy coming out of the White House that allow you to enforce the law and empower the federal agents on our border that are tasked with securing the sovereignty of our nation against the criminal cartels that control 100% of the Mexican side of our southern border. Could we do it, Sheriff Lamb? Had we done it before as recently as 2019?
Yes, Mr. Higgins, we could do that. Maybe a week might be tight, but 30 to 60 days, we could definitely fix this. We're America. We can stop this when we decide we want to stop it.
When we make a decision to enforce existing law, we can flip this thing around. Sheriff Lamb, in my remaining minute, it's a very disturbing development that we've been watching over the course of the last year or so. These guys crossing the border are increasingly violent, and your men, your deputies are encountering that. Will you characterize the demeanor and purpose of a typical getaway that you encounter in your town and expound upon the increased violence that you're witnessing from these men?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Higgins. Absolutely. We are seeing increased violence more and more. The ranchers along the border very fear for their lives every day. These are military-age men that are avoiding detection at all costs. Many have paid between $6,000 and $12,000 to come here, and that's a lot of money to them, and they're not going back, and they're not going to go down without a fight. We've had traffic stops where they've tried to run my deputies off the road while we're trying to stop a load vehicle. A secondary vehicle will try to run them off the road. We had one such vehicle. We chased all the way back to Phoenix to find it was a female with a 1.5-year-old child and a 5-month-old child in her car with her. Violence is not is absolutely an option for these people. They have zero regard for human life.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Payne from New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. We're the most compassionate, generous country in the West. Tell that to the young people that are still looking for their parents that were separated under the previous administration. Mr. Beer, and I know my friends on the other side don't like to hear it, but fentanyl and other hard drugs are smuggled through ports of entry into the U.S. by, unfortunately, U.S. citizens. These drugs are usually hidden in vehicles, cargo, or on a person in the hopes that it won't be detected by CBP as they process people and goods into the country. What policy changes can we make to allow personnel at ports of entry to focus on interdiction of drugs?
Well, the most important policy change that can be made in this area addresses the demand for drugs. Ultimately, if U.S. consumers are willing to pay for illicit narcotics to come into the country, the black market will supply it. And we've seen that for the last century of prohibition, whether it's alcohol prohibition, whether it's drug prohibition, we have seen this phenomenon. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, when we greatly restricted trade and travel, it forced the shift from heroin to fentanyl, which is a far more potent and more deadly substance. And so I do not believe that there is a solution to fentanyl smuggling at ports of entry. At the end of the day, the black market is supplying drugs to U.S. consumers who are paying for it. And as long as we focus on supply and ignore the drug war victims and not address their needs, not provide them with options to protect themselves against fentanyl, wouldn't it be great if fentanyl test strips were legalized nationwide so that people can know what they're ingesting so they're not ending up like victims that we've heard about today? We need options. We need physicians to be able to actually treat addiction in this country and not be prohibited from for example, prescribing methadone to their patients. So there are options out there. I do not believe that restricting trade and travel and trying to crack down on immigration or even on U.S. citizens travel abroad is the solution to the pandemic of fentanyl poisonings.
And so you're saying that the demand is so great that there's always going to be opportunities for people to try to benefit on that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. For example, marijuana is trafficked between ports of entry. We know this has been the case for decades. We ended up, during the early 2000s, increasing the Border Patrol, doubling the size of the Border Patrol. We doubled the amount of marijuana seizures, but the amount of marijuana in the United States did not go down because the difference in cost of production in Mexico and elsewhere is so low, it's easy to just smuggle some more. And so it didn't work. And in fact, it backfired in that case as well because marijuana potency, according to the DEA, increased by more than 30% as a result of that crackdown. So we see it again and again and again. Crackdowns produce higher potency drugs, which are more dangerous to drug users. We need to focus on protecting drug users, not more crackdowns, not more border crackdowns, not more banning of asylum. That's not the answer to this problem.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize